And welcome to the Ben Swann Radio Show. For dramatic effect, pause right there. Glad that you're with me today, this Monday. And Zach Bohannon, you came back.
Long lost son.
Where have you been?
Way out on the left coast.
You have been out in California, huh?
Yeah.
San Diego, L.A.
Yeah, all around.
Everything.
All around.
How was it?
Disneyland, Simi Valley, all about. It was great. It was fantastic. The weather was a little warm, a little toasty in L.A. Last week during the week, unusually hot from what I hear. But San Diego was nice, as I've heard before. It's my first time visiting San Diego. It was beautiful there. We got out.
It's a gorgeous place, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, and we got out. Was there right before the fires happened, and
there are always fires.
And got out. Yeah, and they were going through a bad time of drought out there.
Yeah.
And so, but it was funny on my flight. There to L.A., ran into a friendly face on the plane.
Yes, we happened to be on the same plane.
So random. You were going out there to the L.A. area.
Yeah, United We Stand Fest.
Yeah.
And, so I was like, hey, are you going to come and check it out? And you were like, absolutely not. I got my girlfriend with me. We're going to California, and we're not going to go to a United.
I'd love to, but we're staying with her brother and his wife, visiting some of her family and friends out there, and then seeing some different sites. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, San Diego is to me one of the absolute best places on the planet. I mean, I really think you cannot overstate how cool it is. If you are a fan of desert climate, which I am.
Dry, yeah.
You know, I'm a desert lizard, so I love that. But then on top of that, you get the ocean, which rarely happens in the desert. And then you also get just outside San Diego, mountains. It's
exactly.
Great.
It's an unbelievable atmosphere. It's just a totally different world with the mountains, the ocean, and the palm trees.
Such a huge fan.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Yeah. So the good stuff. And I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad you're back here in Ohio.
Yeah, we brought some good weather back with us. It's going to be in the 70s this week. Very nice, 60s, 70s ish, and nice. So we left the sweltering heat and smog of LA.
Yeah,
and we're back with a little bit cleaner air. So
right on.
Good times.
Well, I'm glad you're here. You're back in time for this fantastic show that we have in store today. I'm really excited about this. A couple of guests. We're going to have a guest from the Atlas Society today to talk about the Atlas Summit that's coming up in New Hampshire, of which I will be a part. So excited about talking about that and what that all entails. Love what these guys are doing, and there's just so much going on in the space of liberty in New Hampshire. So we'll talk about that, as well as at the top of the hour. In our second hour, we're going to be talking with Michael Daughtry. He's the author of a really, really interesting new book that he has put together, The Devil Inside the Beltway, and it's a nonfiction story. I'm really excited to talk to him as well. Got a copy of the book this weekend, and really have not had a chance to get through it yet, so excited about what that looks like. So definitely a good show in store today, as well as what we love to do. Talking about stories that are coming up on benswann.com and popping today and this weekend, this Monday. If you haven't seen it yet, you go to benswann.com and check it out. Why is the USDA? Now, what does USDA stand for? What is that an acronym for? The United States Department of Agriculture. Right. Why is the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, attempting to buy submachine guns? It's a great question. It's an ongoing trend of militarization of federal agencies, and as part of that trend, the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, announced it is looking to procure the General Services Administration website. This is where what they want to get 40 caliber Smith & Wesson submachine guns. The posting announced the United States Department of Agriculture, Office of Inspector General, located in Washington, D.C., has a requirement for a commercial acquisition of submachine guns, 40 cal Smith & Wesson. Ambidextrous safety, semi-automatic, or two-shot burst trigger group. So it goes on from there, more into the RFP here, the request here. But according to a report by Politico, the USDA provided the justification that, quote, more than 100 agents employed by the Law Enforcement Division of the Department's Office of Inspector General who carry such weapons because they are involved in the investigation of criminal activities, including fraud, theft of government property, bribery, extortion, smuggling, and assaults on employees. Now I have a question. Because even if that is the case, and I'm not denying that it is the case, I think probably there are employees of the Office of Inspector General who deal with criminal investigations, criminal activities, including fraud, theft of government property, bribery, extortion, smuggling, and assaults on employees. But my guess is most of these are white-collar crimes, right? Typically fraud, theft of government property, bribery, and extortion, that's usually white-collar stuff. Assaults on employees, maybe a little bit different. Now, if that is the case, why do you need a submachine gun to handle that? If you say our agents need to be armed, I'm not going to deny that that's probably true. There may be a need for you to carry a Glock on you and to be armed. A submachine gun that's a severe weapon. That's not like saying, oh, we think we need to carry a rifle. A submachine gun is utilizing a lot of firepower for someone who's investigating fraud. You can be armed, but it just seems like it's pretty excessive. From fiscal year 2012 through March of 2014, OIG investigations pertaining to USDA operations have netted more than 2,000 indictments, 1,350 convictions, and over $460 million in monetary results. The militarization of executive agencies seems to be an ongoing trend, as we have previously reported here at BenSwann.com. In addition to the Postal Service attempting to procure weapons and ammunition on the GSA website, many other federal agencies have recently bought billions of dollars worth of firearms and ammunition. Those agencies include the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Education, the IRS, and the Social Security Administration. This seems to be a troubling trend that's left many Americans asking why these federal agencies that wouldn't seem as though they need large supplies of weaponry and ammo are looking for such heavy firepower. Now, two things on this, and we're getting close to a break, so I may get cut off here. But look, number one, there is an issue here of people who say the government is arming themselves against the people. Do we know that to be true? We do not know that to be true. And there are some people, even as I say that, who are like, oh, no, wait a minute, no. They're definitely arming themselves against us. You don't know that. However, let's step away from that for a minute. Even if that's true, let's step away from it. As a taxpayer, I want accountability in my government. I want accountability for what you're spending my money on, because it's my money. I want accountability for how it's being used, when it's being used, where it's being used. And as a taxpayer, not because I'm afraid you're going to use that machine gun on me per se. As a taxpayer, I don't think USDA needs to carry submachine guns. If I'm, as a taxpayer, paying for a Glock or a submachine gun, I think you're fine with the Glock. And unless you can demonstrate to me why you need to carry such heavy firepower, or why the Postal Service needs to have hollow point bullets, or why they need to be stocking up in the Department of Homeland Security with billions of rounds of ammunition, if you can't justify it to the taxpayer, we should take it away. To me, it's not that hard. There needs to be accountability in the system for what our tax dollars are being spent on. And I think we also have to step back and say, we don't need to militarize the USDA. We don't need to militarize the Postal Service. They call it going postal for a reason.
Makes you think less than the best, though, doesn't it?
It makes you think less than the best. So let's take away the militarization aspect, certainly. Much more when we come back. And welcome back to the Ben Swann Radio Show. Glad that you're here. Zach Bohannon with me. Zach, you actually got a chance to go to the Ragan Library, you said.
I did. Was kind of a dream of mine. I've always said, I've always told people, yeah, I'm going to go to the Ragan Library someday, because I'm a big Ronald Reagan fan. I guess to say fan would be an understatement.
You're a fanboy.
I have a watch on currently. I have buttons. I have T-shirts. I have framed pictures. All the whole 9 yards. So we went. Okay. Wish we had a webcam to see your face right now.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, and we went, and it's just a beautiful location, first of all. It is just unbelievable, on a cliff kind of overlooking Simi Valley, California.
Yeah.
About maybe 40 minutes out of L.A., and a beautiful cliff overlooking that area. When his funeral occurred there about 10 years ago, they had a sunset service there overlooking that area, and it was just unreal. Sun setting and beautiful. But I learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot about Ragan, and I learned more stuff. And it was pretty. The only presidential library I've ever been to.
Perhaps the only one you desire to go to.
Perhaps the only one I desire to go to. There's a couple others that look interesting. Oh no, I take that back. I was cutting through, going out west several years ago, and cut through Kansas and hit up Dwight Eisenhower's boyhood home. And in his library, and I think Truman's is out there too. So I'm kind of a presidential historian, kind of interested in that, but it's particularly Reagan stuff. So loved it. It was good. It was a good time. A lot of lessons learned. So
good. Well, that's it's an interesting experience, certainly to see something like that. And so certainly, as you said, it's a beautiful location where they put it in as well. So,
yeah. And
very cool stuff.
Try to ask myself every day, WWRD. What would Ragan do? Every day.
Do I need to respond to that with Iran-Contra?
No. Hey, the good thing about that, see, here's the difference.
The good thing about Iran-Contra
here's the difference. I was watching the video of when he came on TV, and it was explaining that. The difference between that and leaders today is that he actually owned up to it. He went on camera and said, look, I made a mistake. We screwed up. Here's setting the record straight. There's no attempt to do that these days. It's all lies, cover up. He said, look, we botched it. We made a blunder, and I fess up to it.
You think that ultimately saved him?
I don't know, but it sure went a long way to help his credibility with the American people.
It certainly helps to minimize scandal.
Yeah,
in the way you handle it, because then it just keeps leaking out, right? The slow leak thing.
Yeah, just be a man and own up to your mistakes, and he admitted that some things weren't handled the right way. So
right on.
I appreciate that.
Got an update for you today on this story we told you about last week. An Iowa student who was suspended for having a BB gun, an airsoft gun, faces misdemeanor, but no further disciplinary action from the school. The student who was suspended for possessing a BB gun inside of a car that was, by the way, not on school property. So the student was in trouble for having a BB gun inside of a car that was not at the school.
Reasonable.
Right? Will no longer be facing further disciplinary action from the school districts. However, the student still faces a misdemeanor charge for possessing the BB gun in the first place. Previously, KWWL had reported that a parent called the police after spotting the BB gun in a vehicle. Police and school officials are now alleging that the student had been seen by the parent holding the BB gun in public view across the street from the high school. In a letter to the families after the incident, the high school principal, Dan Johnson, had written that the BB gun was not displayed in a threatening manner. According to the city ordinance, though, for this particular city in Iowa, it is illegal to conceal or carry certain items considered by the city to be weapons, including slingshots. Homer Simpson.
So Bart Simpson.
Get your kid in line.
Yeah.
Because slingshots not allowed, Bart.
Yep.
Aw, man. Don't have a cow,
Don't
man.
have a cow, man.
Brass knuckles. Yeah, because that's the same as a slingshot.
Absolutely.
Right. Replica firearms that resemble actual firearms. Because that's a weapon, a replica that looks like a firearm. Lieutenant Scott Baxter of the police department there provided clarification to the context surrounding the investigation of the student and the BB gun. Thank goodness, let's get some clarification here. We understand some of the concerns that people felt, maybe that we or the school overstepped our boundaries, but we feel the exact opposite. Of course you do. Baxter told KWWL, regarding the student's possession of the BB gun, it's not necessarily illegal to possess them or to shoot them in some cases, but you have to fall within the ordinance guidelines. In this particular case, that didn't happen. The student was suspended for 1 day during the school's investigation, but the suspension was considered by the student to be standard procedure. By the school, to be standard procedure, not punishment. Yeah, because a suspension is a procedure, not a punishment. Okay. The incident will not be placed on the student's permanent record. Well, I would certainly hope not, especially when it didn't happen at school? Why is the school like, I don't know. I mean, everything about this story makes my head explode.
Yeah,
everything.
I know.
You're not at school, but the school wants to intervene because you're a student at the school, and because they are the social center for everything in the universe, right? They have to decide what punishment that you face, and then again, this list of weapons that are considered illegal within the city. But see, this is actually a situation where the people in this particular town have the ability to fix this. Why not go and say, let's put a referendum on the ballot that says, slingshots are not weapons and you can carry one without having to have a permit. A BB gun you can carry without having to have a permit. A replica weapon you can carry without a permit. Let's just take that a little further. In this city, you don't even need to have a permit for a handgun or for your submachine gun.
Yeah, let the people decide on that.
Right? You have the power to do that in this case. Rather than sitting back and being victimized by the system and having these stupid, and in this case, it is a stupid set of rules that essentially say you don't have the right to have a slingshot on you. In some cases, it's perfectly acceptable for you to have one, but in this case, it won't be. Really, in what case would having a slingshot not be acceptable? Now, if you misuse the slingshot and you crack an old lady in the head as she's taking her groceries out of a grocery store, then that has nothing to do with a slingshot. That's an assault behavior by a person. Why do you need to ban the slingshot?
Again, it's going after the item, the instrument, rather than the behavior.
Yeah.
Again, and schools being social engineers,
which is what it really comes down to, right?
Yeah, I mean, every story that we've seen, we talked about stuff happening in schools. It seems like the craziest, most head-exploding stories come out of the schools that we're hearing. A lot of them.
Well, right, because I think that's where, again, look, if you're a progressive, that is ground zero for all the stuff that you're pushing forward. So forget about trying to convince anyone over the age of 40 that having a BB gun is a bad idea, or it's dangerous, or it's a weapon, or it endangers the public at large. You're never going to convince them of that. They don't need to.
Get them while they're young.
That's right. When you have an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 16-year-old and you say, hey, not only are we telling you that it's not okay to have it, but we're going to punish you so that everyone else within your peer group sees that this is unacceptable behavior to even possess a BB gun or possess a replica weapon, something that looks like a weapon, looks like a gun. When you demonize it, you shift the culture to say, well, this thing must be bad. And that's what's happening, right? We've got this mentality that's brewing in America that says these things are bad. This segment is brought to you by our friends over at SnoopWall.com. If you go to benswann.snoopwall.com, you can get 20 to 50% off your order. So what is SnoopWall? Well, if you have an Android smartphone, what you may not know is that hackers, online criminals, can actually access your mobile device simply by doing what? By hacking your apps. You hack the app, and that allows you to access the microphone or the camera on the phone. SnoopWall.com is your port authority. benswann.snoopwall.com is where you go. 20 to 50% off your order. Check these guys out. A must-have for your smartphone. We're back with Aaron Day of the Atlas Society when we come back. And welcome back to the Ben Swann Radio Show. Glad that you're hanging out with us on this Monday. Not a bad Monday to be hanging out.
Not bad.
I'd say.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, it's...
Did you see what I did there?
I see what you did there. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm a nerd.
So, Aaron Day with the Atlas Society is on with us today. Aaron, thanks for calling in.
Good afternoon.
So let's talk about what's going on out there in the great state of New Hampshire. And I guess the big question for you guys is, who is John Galt? Tell me about what's going on with the Atlas Summit that's coming up. This is in June, correct?
It is in June. It's June the 19th through June the 22nd in Bedford, New Hampshire. That's where the event will be held. There's a hotel in Manchester, New Hampshire. And it is going to be a jam-packed event focusing on promoting the philosophy of open objectivism and basically putting forward the ideas of reason, individualism, achievement, and freedom. And we picked the Who is John Galt theme because it's obviously always a popular topic, but in particular, it's of interest because we're going to be showing one of the first screenings of the third installment of the Atlas Shrugged movie trilogy. In fact, this is going to be not even the final product. It's going to be an edit where the audience will actually be able to even have maybe a little bit of input into the final product.
Oh, that's so cool. So folks will actually be able to watch it and say, hey, maybe if we did this, or maybe you could add this, and you will actually take those points into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to go so far as to
it's not guaranteed.
It's absolutely not guaranteed, but yes. And in fact, for part two, this actually happened. There was a version that was screened where at the end of the movie they actually showed John Galt's face. That was actually in an earlier edit before the final version was released, and the reaction from the audience was that's not a good idea in this context, and so that ended up getting pulled. So it's pretty exciting if you're an Atlas Shrugged fan. This is really about as good as it gets in terms of being able to have impact and input.
Yeah, I mean, I guess only in the Liberty Movement. Only in the Liberty Movement would you say, hey, we're creating this mainstream motion picture, and we're going to show it to you guys in advance and let you have some input in it. I mean, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Absolutely.
So, couple things. Let's talk about, you said objectivist. What is an objectivist? To somebody who's listening and they say, okay, I'm kind of into the libertarian thing or the liberty movement. I'm not really sure what an objectivist is. Do you just object to stuff? Is that it? You're against everything?
No, we don't just object to stuff. I mean, it really is. It is a philosophy that's based on reason, achievement, individualism, and freedom. That is, in essence, what the philosophy is all about. It was originally created by Ayn Rand, and the Atlas Society was formed 22 years ago, actually, to kind of build on that philosophy. We take an approach of open objectivism, which means that the philosophy is open to discussion and debate and input, and so that's essentially what we've done with it. And what we all know right now is that our liberty is at risk, and we certainly see that all over the place in terms of the continuing encroachment of government, crony capitalism, et cetera. And people are looking for answers. And what the philosophy of objectivism does is it makes the moral case for individual rights, limited government, and capitalism.
So the objectivist believes in natural rights?
We believe in natural rights. We believe in individual rights, and that you should be free to pursue your own happiness, and that your own happiness is a goal in and of itself, and that we have the ability to use reason to achieve happiness. Even against
the will of the collective?
Even against, yes.
Maybe especially against.
Exactly.
I think that's such an important point because, as you know, Aaron, we talk about this quite a bit, but I think the single most important issue when we talk about liberty today is not just reinforcing, but recreating a discussion in America that hasn't been really held on a major level for at least 100 years, which is this idea that the individual is greater than the collective. That the individual's rights supersede the collective. For 100 years, progressives have been telling us the exact opposite is true, that the individual is never as important as the sum or the greater number of people. How do you, as a group, overcome that?
Well, it's definitely an uphill battle. The way that we do it, as I said, we've been around for 22 years. The think tank in D.C., and now we're more scattered around the country. We do it by trying to spread these ideas to student groups. Obviously, as we've seen our educational system become more and more collectivist in nature. And I think if you look at Common Core as well, while Common Core right now tackles really math predominantly, but once we start getting into the social sciences and some of these other areas, we definitely can anticipate a situation where people are being taught what to think as opposed to how to think. And so it's important that we get these ideas out there early before people go too far through the process. And so we do a lot of student programs. We work with Students for Liberty, Young Americans for Liberty, and help provide materials, both printed materials and online materials, to help get these ideas out there. And then we have an advocacy group. One of the big projects that we have right now, I know you had Ed Hudgens on. Ed is our director of advocacy. We've written a book called The Republican Party Civil War, Will Freedom Win? And the whole point right now is we know that the Republican Party is in that state of turmoil, and you essentially have, three different factions. You have social conservatives, you have the establishment, and then you have the libertarian branch of the Republican Party. And it's really important to provide the moral framework for how to look at the party and how to look at and analyze these issues. And so a big effort we have is to promote Ed's book and to get Ed speaking all over the country about this, so that we can provide that ammunition to other think tanks, to folks that are activists, and to help really start to frame the debate. Because where we are right now is we're in a situation where people aren't having a fundamental debate about ideas. We really have accepted, in many cases, a flawed underlying philosophical approach, and are now just debating over the tactics of its implementation. So it's really critical that we get out there both through student groups and through activists.
Talking with Aaron Day from the Atlas Society today, and talking about the Atlas Summit that is upcoming here June 19th to the 22nd. Where can people go, Aaron, just to get information about this? We're going to continue the conversation, but I want to make sure we're giving people a chance to start checking it out and making plans for this. This is coming up a little over a month from now, or almost exactly a month from now.
Yeah, it's June the 19th through the 22nd, and it's actually, today's a very important date. We have an early bird registration pricing that ends at midnight, so if you want to take advantage of a reduced rate, I would suggest that you hop online and book your reservation today.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And so the website address is www.atlassociety.org, and then /AS for Atlas Summit, and that will get you to the page that outlines the entire program, the schedule of events, with a link to actually confirm your reservation.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, there is a certain only a certain number of slots available for this conference. Is that correct?
There's a certain number of slots, and this really is. I mean, I go to a lot of Liberty conferences during the course of the year, and I would say. This is obviously my favorite, but it's my favorite because it really is a very intellectually engaging group. We have 49 different sessions, 32 different speakers. We're likely to have over 200 attendees, but the content is phenomenal. It spans a variety of different topic areas, ranging from the arts to applied objectivism to politics and culture, to philosophy. So it's not just focused on one of those areas. There's a little bit of something for everyone. But Will Thomas, our conference director, spends a tremendous amount of time screening the speakers. And so this isn't one of these situations where, and I know this happens at conferences, people show up, don't know what they're going to talk about, or maybe there's a panel and they don't know who the other people are, and so it's just kind of a off the cuff situation. But these are speakers that have been kind of pre-screened and come to the table with a well-organized presentation. And so it's really engaging. And you get a chance to interact with other objectivists from actually all over the world. We have people that fly in from other countries for this event. And since we've been doing this for over 2 decades, we really have developed quite a community around it.
Right on. Aaron Day, don't go away. We're going to have more with you after the break, folks. You can continue to get information. If you're interested in attending the Atlas Summit, I highly recommend it to you. You can go to eventbrite.com/Atlas Summit 2014 tickets, and you can get them there. Get them while they're hot, because they won't be there for long. More with Aaron Day when we come back. And welcome back to the Ben Swann Radio Show here on RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network. We are talking today with Aaron Day of the Atlas Society, talking about the upcoming Atlas Summit. It'll be in New Hampshire. This will be June 19th through the 22nd in Manchester. If you go to benswann.com, you'll see over on the right-hand side of the page a link. You can actually click on that link, and it will get you over to check out the site, and also a place where you can order tickets. So, encourage you to do so. Aaron, thanks for sticking through the break with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So let's talk a little bit more about just the overall philosophy. I mean, you guys are doing some really remarkable work, and you've been at it for some time. But the attempt here that you're facing is really a battle with the culture, the current American culture. We were talking about this a minute ago, that says you do not, as an individual, really have any rights that trump the greater good. And what the greater good has as a right, and by the way, a lot of our listeners, we talk about this quite a bit, that just comes back to fascism, right? Fascism believing that the state combined with the corporate is the true power, and that the individual can never decide for themselves what is not useless and harmful freedom. Are you surprised, Aaron, by how the ideas of liberty are evolving so much and moving so fast within society right now?
I'm not surprised, and I would also say I don't know that they're moving fast enough. But it certainly is. I guess I'm more surprised how the rate at which the state has grown in recent years, and so certainly you're seeing the liberty movement take hold and expand, but it's got the collectivism and the growth of the state is growing at an even more rapid pace, I would say. And so this is why it's vitally important that we scale up our efforts, get more people involved early, and engage with activists as well as students so that we can get the word out there and provide people with intellectual ammunition.
Intellectual ammunition is one part of the equation, certainly. And when you deal with people and making the intellectual argument, but so many people respond kind of on a visceral, emotional level to so many of the issues of the day. And we see media really using emotion in order to justify basically every bad behavior that comes from government, every bad behavior that comes from the collective. How do you reach people on an emotional level that speaks to where they are? Because that seems to me where a lot of the growth in the liberty movement is.
I agree with you 100%, and actually this is why we have been focusing almost exclusively on development of new content for the web and the development of videos, because you've hit on something that is a big challenge for the liberty movement. I mean, liberty folks tend to be, rational, tend to look at things in an objective manner, use data, facts, some of the things that seem to be mysterious in a broader context, and unfortunately that doesn't necessarily work as effectively. And so what we've done, and I think the fact that Atlas Shrugged has been turned into movie form really exemplifies what you're saying. I mean, obviously, a 1,200-page book is difficult. It's not a great necessarily starting point for everyone, but trying to take the ideas that Rand put in a fictional work. I mean, this has been the most influential. I think Atlas Shrugged is ranked as the second most influential book behind the Bible, and it's a work of fiction, although that's debatable as time keeps on moving forward. But the opportunity to take the book and the concepts of the philosophy and put it into video form and make it engaging is one of the one of the goals and one of the projects that we've been involved in for 2 decades. It's actually taken quite a while to get the movie to the screen.
And this is Atlas Shrugged 3, correct?
Yes.
So the third installment, is this the final installment?
It is.
And again, just for folks who are just tuning in, we're talking with Aaron Day of the Atlas Society about the upcoming Atlas Summit. This is going to be June 19th through the 22nd in Manchester, New Hampshire. Aaron, you said for folks who come to the summit, they will actually be able to screen Atlas Shrugged 3, and there will be an allowance for suggestions on certain aspects of the movie. It's not going to be guaranteed, obviously, those suggestions are taken, but even just allowing it is such an unusual step. Is anybody who attends able to be a part of that?
They are, provided they buy the correct ticket that includes that event. But yes.
Very cool. Overall, what do you hope to accomplish through this particular event? The Atlas Summit happens yearly, is that correct?
Yes.
What do you hope comes out of this year in particular?
Well, what I hope comes out of this year, I mean, again, this is a gathering where people that are really engaged with this philosophy. We have some people that have been to every single Atlas Summit over 2 decades, and that's that's phenomenal. So this really is an opportunity for folks in the community to reconnect. But it's also an opportunity to, as I said, engage students. We're probably going to have 40 or 50, maybe even more, college students that are attending on a student scholarship. And these students are actually, will have a full day of lectures and courses really focused on giving them the basics and the fundamentals of the philosophy. So what we hope comes out of this for students is a real solid conceptual understanding of the philosophy, and to build relationships that will be meaningful and enduring over time. And then we hope to work with those students as they go back to their respective states or countries, and build that dialogue and help them to spread these ideas. And then we want to obviously get new people involved with the movement and with the philosophy. And I think that obviously having the movie is one great way of doing this. It's a way to introduce new people into the community, and then I would say to provide again a broad-based introduction to objectivism. The fact that we have 49 different sessions in all of these different areas really exposes people to the fact that objectivism is a very rich philosophy that really provides a practical kind of guidebook for life. And so, covering arts, politics, culture, philosophy, etc. So so we hope that people really get a firm understanding of the philosophy and form meaningful connections that they'll cherish throughout their life. And that's, when you attend the event, I think you'll see that some of the connections that have been formed here and the relationships truly are phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we want to encourage folks to check it out. If you go to Eventbrite.com, you can check out Atlas Summit 2014 tickets. The other way to do it is just go to benswann.com, and it's over on the right-hand side of the page. You'll see the actual link. You can click it, and then you can go through the list. Obviously, the early bird individual conference ticket, you can get that one, as well as kind of run through the different packages that are available. But want to encourage people to do it because, again, this is a full weekend. We're talking about in all it's about 2.5 days. Aaron, is that right, or is it a full 3 days?
It's 2.5 days. It's really 2.5 days.
2.5 days, and there's a lot going on in there. Again, you get to see the early screening of Atlas Shrugged 3. I got to tell you, that's worth going just for that reason. To tell your friends later on. So here's how the movie ended the first time, and then we made some suggestions. Even if that didn't happen, it would be worth going so you could say it happened and make the claim that you actually changed the ending of Atlas Shrugged 3. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, aren't you going to be at the Atlas Summit?
I will be there. I will. I'll be there presenting, as well as moderating a couple of panels. So, you get your butt out there and support what we're doing, but, encourage people to sign up and make sure you're attending my session because I will be talking in depth about fascism, in depth about collectivism versus the individual and how that is playing out in our society today. So definitely encourage people to get out there and to check it out. Aaron, thanks so much for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Anthem Vault. AnthemVault.com is where you can go to check out and get involved in what we call the future of gold. So gold needs liquidity, meaning where you can buy it, linking it to your bank card, you can sell it easily. All of that happens at AnthemVault.com. If you go to AnthemVault.com, use the promo code BEN, B-E-N, and you can get free gold and silver just for signing up. Plus, by using the promo code, you actually can be entered into a contest to win $500 in free gold or silver. It's AnthemVault.com. If you're in the market for gold and silver, not everybody is. If you are, that's where you need to start. Check them out. It is a great place to get started. AnthemVault.com. All right, we have much more at the top of the hour as we enter hour 2, talking with author Michael Daughtry about his brand new book, The Devil Inside the Beltway. You don't want to miss that. Second hour coming up next. And welcome back. It is hour 2 of the Ben Swann Radio Show here on RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network. Glad you have stayed with us into the second hour. If you missed our first hour, go back and you can go over to youtube.com/Ben Swann Reality Check, and you can download the podcast of that first hour. Talked with Aaron Day from the Atlas Society, and I'd love for you to hear more about what he had to say, encouraging you to be a part of the Atlas Summit, upcoming in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, June 19th through the 22nd. So encourage you to do that and check that out. This hour, though, really excited about our next guest. Michael Dougherty is the author of a new book, The Devil Inside the Beltway, which is a very interesting, and I got to confess, haven't just barely started it, so haven't gotten very deep into it. Just received it this weekend from Michael, but it's a book that really deals, I think, with a lot of the issues that we see taking place in Washington D.C. today. And Michael is with us now. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to talk to you.
Likewise. So let's talk a little bit about this book, because I love, first of all, it's a nonfiction book, right? This is not a make-believe story, correct?
No, this is the real deal.
Tell us a little bit about the book itself. What's the plot here?
It's a narrative nonfiction. I told like a story so people would understand what was happening to me and my company from 2008 forward. I own and founded a cancer detection center called LabMD in Atlanta. And this is a story from the time a phone rang in our office from a company named Tyversa in Pennsylvania that said, "We've downloaded one of your files as 9,000 of your patients," to our wondering how they got it, and they're not telling us unless we hired them, to a Kafkaesque type battle with the feds, where instead of going after true cybersecurity criminals, they are coming after a citizen that is got a cybersecurity issue that they won't even say what it is. It is power without knowledge, which seems to be what every agency the feds are going on right now. And it's my one story about what happened to us.
So the feds, you say, coming after, instead of the cyber criminals, coming after your all, coming after in what way?
Well, they after we talked to this company for a while, we told them to go away, and they called later in 2008 and said, "We're going to give this to the feds." And the feds in 2010 started investigating us for data security weaknesses. Congress has created an agency called the Federal Trade Commission, told them they are responsible for protecting consumers from unfairness and deception, and the Federal Trade Commission has decided, without Congress's specific okay, to think that means they get to go after all businesses that have any type of cybersecurity issue. And so they run us through, it's really the method to their madness more than what they're doing. They've just drained us dry, just run us through years of investigations, tons of money and lawyer fees, when they don't have to say exactly what the standards are. They literally argue that they don't have to have standards, they don't have to have rules. They get to decide what is good data security on a case-by-case basis. And we can't even show how it got out. It's an incredible action by the Fed.
Now, when you say it's a case-by-case basis, this comes back to the idea that there are no real standards or principles behind what the FTC is doing, correct? That everything is kind of up in the air as far as individual entities? And
that's how they want them, because that means they can go after anybody they want far and wide. And really this turns in the reality is this is about draining you dry and running you into the ground to get their way before you can get to court, than really having anything to do with real data security standards. We're a healthcare facility, and in healthcare we interact. The government asks us for feedback. They still go do what they want, but they don't make it up as they go along. The Federal Trade Commission it's really a power play where they want to keep it loose. But it's unfair. Then you don't know what you're supposed to do. And we all run around scratching our head.
Talking with Michael Dougherty, the author of The Devil Inside the Beltway. So Michael, in your case, what rules were made up as they went along?
What is appropriate data security practices, what we were supposed to be doing. They were upset that we did not have, when we had 7 and 8 employees, we didn't have written data security practices, even though we were practicing good data security. the fact that an employee had put, without totally against policy, she put a file sharing program on her computer to listen to music. So that, and this is in 2008. So when there's hundreds of millions of workstations with that on there all over the government itself. So this is, instead of being a leadership agency that wants to let us know what we're supposed to do so we all can go after good practices, they rather motivate by fear, by going back 6 years before, saying 6 years ago this was bad, so they can put the head up on the spike and scare all other businesses into complying. Because the agencies are very entitled and very power hungry, and they also feel, I think, quite paranoid. They think everyone out there is a criminal and they can't get to all of them. So fear is their favorite tactic. And as long as they can keep you scared by not letting you know exactly what you're supposed to do, they feel that's the best thing for them.
So, as people hear this, if they're outside of this kind of circle where they've ever had to deal with the FTC before, is this surprising to people to hear what you're saying in terms of the lack of, I guess, any systematic formula for how this is supposed to work? Does that surprise people when they hear this?
Well, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because it's so unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So when you're the victim,
it is unbelievable.
When you're the victim, people immediately go, well, there must be something wrong with you, but I'm too polite to say that to your face. So, I wrote
That's
the book.
always what they think, though. Michael, they always think that if you are in trouble for whatever reason with any agency, any law enforcement agency, any government agency, it must be because you were doing something wrong.
And they use that. I mean, they play the mantra, you're a businessman, it's cheaper just to let this go away, take your licks and move on, go back to your court. I mean, they throw it all at you because all they want is settle, so they can go back, to the agency and to Congress and go, look, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. They brought another burnt broom in.
I've never heard that analogy before, but that's a good one.
It's exactly what they do, and they're not used to people like me. And I'm at Cato right now, actually, listening to people talk about government bullies and regulatory bullies, and I'm not alone. But they're not used to people like me getting fed up and pushing back. They stuck me in a lose-lose situation. I ran a cancer detection center. It was an 18-year company that I founded. They have no shame. We diagnosed cancer, and yet they wanted to use that fear. Keep in mind, this is back before Snowden and Target and, WikiLeaks. So people didn't know what was going on, and our reputation, just with the taint, would have been hammered. So what they like you to do is they like you to sign these settlements that say you admit no wrongdoing, but they want you to be audited by them for 2 decades. And then if you fail at that point, you would have to pay fines. And at the same time, they put a nice press release out that is so one-sided that everyone thinks, well, they must have done something wrong. That alone, when you've got surgeons, depending on you to diagnose cancer, is enough to kill you. So we were dead either way. So I decided to fight because what this is outrageous. And this administration and these agencies in the last 4 or 5 years are completely off the chain. And I think the story is important to be told because what they're really doing is damaging the public and consumers. We have one less cancer detection center. We have no more security in our cybersecurity. Snow knocks out a thumb drive, but these guys want to play this game.
Michael Dougherty, author of The Devil Inside the Beltway. Don't go away. I want to talk to you about some of these misnomers in terms of government success in these areas, what you describe as another burned witch's broom. We'll talk more with Michael when we come back. And welcome back to the Ben Swann Radio Show here on RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network. On the phone with me today, Michael Dougherty. He is the author of a book called The Devil Inside the Beltway. It is a true story of having to deal with government regulators. And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong here, but how they essentially, it sounds to me like how they are cracking down on businesses without having any actual set of standards, which leads many people to question, why are certain businesses targeted and certain businesses not targeted?
Well, I mean, I wish I could read the mind of the beast. I mean, that's a very good question. I don't know. I really think that as working in medicine, where we have science as a fact that's non-negotiable from the government, this is really shocking to me that we have people that are going to get in technology and just sort of muddle along at the same time slamming corporations. Why they came after a 30-man, 30-employee cancer detection center is beyond me, and then not some other group. I do know, though, that because I'm the founder, sole shareholder, don't have SEC, FTF, fiduciary duty regs, I could fight back a lot stronger. A lot of corporations, the way the game is played in this town, they go after corporations, and they're well aware that these corporations really have got to settle. And they hold you by the ankles before you can get to a court to really fight this out. And the FTC hasn't fought this out in court before. Right now, they're in the middle of it with Wyndham and with me. Most everyone else, now 50 companies have all just rolled over because it is arduous. It is a big deal, and quite frankly, had it not been for a cause of action, which is a government oversight nonprofit law firm in D.C. Helping me out, I couldn't be able to fight. But this is a much bigger issue than what happened to me or my company. It really is. This waste of funds makes us less safe. These people don't know what they're doing. Technology is moving very quickly, and while they're wasting all their time over here, we have Snowden walk out with a thumb drive. And I'm just one example. I mean, I think that's the big picture here.
Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong. Your company, you said, was diagnosing cancer in patients?
Correct.
Okay. Correct. And is it incorrect that you have certain competitors in the field that you've tried to get information about in terms of their relationship with government and have been unable to get that? Is that correct?
Well, correct.
And so do you believe on any level, because look, let's face it, brass tacks here, government and cronyism is destroying this country. Right, so these crony relationships where somebody has a company, they make a lot of financial contributions, and all of a sudden competition for them is eliminated, whether it's through regulation, whether it's through certain perks or government contracts or whatever it is, people are taken care of. And I think most people recognize the seriousness of the crony system in America and how it's destroying entrepreneurship and it's destroying the free market, if there is even a free market left. Do you think that's part of what happened in your case, that the FTC comes in and begins looking at you because you have competitors who are more politically connected than you are?
No, not competitors, but the company that found the file and took the file, it turned out they were, and this is middle of the book, and so it's a good time to bring this up, they were working with Dartmouth, and Dartmouth had gotten a $24 million grant from Homeland Security. And on the advisory board of Tyversa is Wesley Clark and Howard Schmidt, who was Obama's head of cybersecurity. So you have to assume there's some relationships going on back and forth of why certain companies are working with certain government entities. And that's why, working in medicine, look, we had a phenomenal relationship with the licensing inspectors because they were all scientists. We didn't feel like we were in IRS audits. We were pretty naive when we walked into the FTC's crosshairs. But the way they dealt with us was not on the up and up and not transparent. That caught us sideways. But I knew that when I was told we're going to send this to the FTC, I thought, go ahead, good luck. The second the FTC called me, I knew there had to be a connection. And then I started doing my own homework, and I found 2009 congressional testimony in front of oversight. And who's sitting at the same table? The Federal Trade Commission, Wesley Clark, Tyversa, the U.S. Patent and Trade. Come on. It's a real small town around here.
Well, and it's not like there's even much of an attempt to hide it. No. Right? I mean, they'll hide it on some levels, but for the most part, it's just the way that it's the cost of doing business, right?
And when you get a kid hand caught in a cookie jar, what do you get? Stone silence. If there's nothing to say, they just stone up. And that's what we get right now. This wall of silence. And it's not okay. Very damaging.
Well, people talk about all the time when we hear conservatives or you hear libertarians talk about over-regulation. And immediately, the alarm bells go, wait a minute, you can't talk bad about regulation because we have to have regulation or people are going to be dumping sludge into the rivers. That's not what you're talking about when you talk about regulation. And that's why I appreciate what you're saying here, because there's so much of this regulation that doesn't have any standard to it. And when you allow agencies to run roughshod over people and make up regulation as they go, as you said, on a case-by-case basis, it creates the perfect opportunity to simply run roughshod over companies without rhyme or reason, and it creates a perfect environment for cronyism to thrive.
And I call it run the prisoner until he drops dead, because they just kept going. This is the federal government. They have unlimited resources. If these lawyers in these agencies don't have something to do, they won't have a job, and don't think they're going to go pull some company out and go clean bill of health. That doesn't happen that often. They play rough and tumble stuff here. This is psychological warfare, intimidation, wearing you down. Then what I really love are these poor companies that actually did settle. In the buried fine print says no. There's been no admission of wrongdoing, and then you find the head of the Federal Trade Commission sitting in front of Congress last month bringing these companies' names up from 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think that people expected to be used as an example and a whipping boy for years to come. But that's how they play. And that's what I want people to know. Because until this is all their dirty secret, and they want to keep everyone bullied down, and I think it's really critical we understand the game. And not this lipstick on a pig of, we're here to save everyone. I mean, when it's run correctly, it can work correctly. That's not what's going on.
Right. It is always sold to us. It is always sold to us that government is attempting to do something in the name of the greater good. And if they have to run over an individual in order to protect the greater good or the collective, then it's worth it. The problem is there's never an individual. When you only talk about the greater good somewhere out there, and in the process you run over countless individuals, that is the collective. You're collectively running over individuals. But there's always some kind of out in the mist, out in the distance, this group of people who are being helped, and they're not being helped.
Right, and I think it's way off an extreme. I mean, it doesn't. The public has to look. You've got Benghazi. You've got the contempt on Lois Lerner's face when she's caught red-handed. You've got all these scandals going on. I mean, one after another. This is what happens when you've got hypocrites running the show. We all have to live by the same standards. That's why the Founding Fathers separated powers, because this is what happens when you unify powers. And Congress has made these agencies completely unaccountable to anyone, even Congress. So look at how the agencies treat Congress when they go testify in front of them. It's patronizing and insulting, if nothing else.
Absolutely. Michael, where can people find the book?
Well, it's at Amazon in ebook, hardcover, softcover, and audiobook, and Barnes & Noble, and your indie bookseller, and thedevilinsidethebeltway.com. DevilinsideTheBeltway.com. Check it out. Great book. Michael Dougherty, thank you so much for being with us. Again, terrific work on that, and keep us updated as to what you're working on. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. This segment, folks, brought to you by Snoopwall. Go to benswann.snoopwall.com. It's your port authority. If you have a smartphone, and Android specifically, cyber criminals, hackers, perverts can access your phone with your microphone or your camera. If you go to benswann.snoopwall.com, 20 to 50% off of your order. You need it. If you've got a smartphone, no excuse not to have it. Go get it today. Much more on the other side of this break. Welcome back to the show. Pretty excited about this story. Intern Zach. So we got Zach Bowe and then we got Intern Zach, right? We got like a high level of Zach.
Coalition
with us, absolutely. And then we have a third Zach who works for us, so it gets very confusing at times. Trying to send out emails is very frustrating. But he pointed out this great story on RT today, and kudos to the state of Colorado. Colorado's doing a whole lot of things right. Colorado governor signs nation's first right to try bill into law. The state of Colorado has signed a law giving terminally ill patients the right to use experimental drugs. Governor John Hickenlooper signed the Right to Try bill into law in Fort Collins. It's a proposal being advanced in several states by patient advocates who were frustrated by the amount of time the federal approval process takes for experimental drugs in the pipeline. Missouri and Louisiana also passed similar legislation recently. The bill's co-sponsor was absent from the signing ceremony in order to tend to her older brother Tom, who's suffering from a rare blood cancer. Quote, for people who are facing death and have one last hope, they should have a choice to try every possible drug, she stated. The new law allows patients and doctors to work together to secure experimental treatments with the permission of a pharmaceutical company. Insurance companies are not required to pay for the treatment, and drug manufacturers can choose whether to charge for the medication or to provide it to the patient free of charge. Now listen, I am so for this. I can't even express to you. There is not enough language or enough words in the English language to tell you how for this idea, not only am I now, but I have been for some time. It makes absolutely no sense to me at all why we have a process in which someone who is dying of a disease is not allowed to try some kind of either procedure or drug in order to attempt to survive. And we have a federal system that says, no, it's too dangerous. We can't allow you to try. Anyone with common sense would say, but you're dying. So if I'm dying, why can't I not try it? Because what's the outcome? They might kill me? So what? How do I not have the right to attempt to survive? This comes back, again, to me, this comes back to a right to life issue, right? If you believe in life, then you believe, I would hope, that people have the right to be able to survive and to try experimental drugs. And government should never be able to stand in the way and say, no, the risk is too high with this thing. The risk of what? It doesn't make any sense, and it's about time. It's only shocking to me that it's taking this long for people in states to be able to say, why can't you try? Absolutely incredible to me. The new law allows patients and doctors to work together securing experimental treatments. Well, good. The bill also won support from State Senator Irene Aguilar, who was also a physician, saying, quote, when you're terminal and there's a drug out there that might help you, it can seem that the obstacles to get that drug are insurmountable. Aguilar dubbed the measure the Dallas Buyers Club bill after the movie about a terminally ill AIDS patient who managed to smuggle medicines from abroad due to them not being legal in the U.S. I didn't know when that was what the movie was about.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I haven't seen it. I had no idea. Wow. We're being educated here. Opponents of the piece of legislation. Now let's see this. What could you possibly have as an opposition to this? But let's find out. Opponents of the piece of legislation say it's an ill-advised effort that circumvents federal law while also undermining the drug development process. What? Okay, circumvents federal law, fine, so what? And then undermines the drug development process?
What's that even mean?
So they're not going to... So if the drug is being developed and it works, then they'll rush it to market? Can't have that happening.
Can't have that. A new process.
What? Oh, and then it gets better. And, of course, it threatens to harm more people than it helps by providing access to medications that haven't been proven safe and effective. What part of I'm dying do you not understand? What part of I'm terminally ill? What part of the doctor says you've got 2 to 6 months to live? What part of go home and say goodbye to your family? Or make arrangements for your own funeral? Do you not get? The law does not require drug companies to provide any drug outside of federal parameters. And there's no indication that pharmaceutical companies will do so. Dr. David Gorski, a surgical oncologist who is also editor of the blog Science-Based Medicine, says, quote, the right to try proposals are simply feel-good measures that won't help many patients. And that's probably true as well. These proposals are built on this fantasy that there are all these patients out there who are going to be saved if they could just get access to the medicine, he said. In reality, the patients who might be helped are very few, while the number of patients who could be hurt by something like this are many. Again, hurt, you should have the choice. Listen, the doctor's probably correct when he says there aren't that many people who will actually be helped by this, because there are a lot of drug companies, first of all, who probably won't offer it anyways. If it's experimental, they're not going to tell you they have this experimental thing. They're probably not going to share it with you. That's probably the case.
It's just, I think it's just a case of the Fed wanting to be the man and decide everything.
Absolutely.
And decide whose case is severe enough, and whose case is not severe enough, and all sorts of things of that nature. So, they get to decide who gets what and what's dangerous and what's not so dangerous and what they deem to be right. I don't know if they're doctors. Are there that many doctors in the central government that can say, "Oh, that's a dangerous drug there"? Because we can't do any work. I mean, it can't hurt. The patient's already terminal.
The patient's terminal.
Already dying.
Yes.
So it can only go up. Their chances for survival, it can only be helped, even a little.
Right. It's not like it can get worse.
Yeah.
You can't get worse than dying.
Yeah.
So, I would think in the medical field you'd have a pretty clear, bar here of if it does anything to even slow death, then it's helping somewhat. But see, this is what it comes down to for me. This is not about pharmaceutical companies. It's about the right of the person to choose for themselves. And that's the slippery slope for government. When the individual has the right to be able to choose for themselves, then what else do they have the right to choose in terms of medication? Are you allowed to try things that the FDA right now says, well, it's not even a pharmaceutical? It's not through a pharmaceutical company. So this goes back to CBD oil and THC oil. I have a good friend I've told you guys about on this show who's dying of cancer. She's battling breast cancer. It's her third bout with cancer. And she's been told she has 2 to 6 months to live. And I'm fighting like crazy trying to help her get out to Colorado and secure THC oil. I don't know if it's going to help her. I don't know if she's going to survive. But I believe this. This is a lady. She's an older lady. She's, never used any kind of drug in her life. Illegal drug, I should say, in her life. She was a little bit scared of the idea of it and started showing her how it works. The lines are so long. It's so difficult to access. And the ridiculous thing about it is, in researching this stuff, CBD oil, which is helping kids with epilepsy. A lot of people don't even realize that our government holds the patent on CBD oil for medicinal purposes. Can you believe that? Goes back to the 1990s. Yes. How sick is that? That it's illegal up until just 2012 in Colorado. It was illegal to even access this oil for medicinal purposes. And our government, since the 1990s, has been holding the patent on it? What are you doing? And so for this lady, I look at her and I say, should she have the right, she's from Ohio, should she have the right here in Ohio to be able to say, I'm going to harvest oil from this plant and try it to see if I eat it with my food? She's not even sitting out on her porch smoking it. I'm going to eat it with my food, and if it helps with my cancer. She's been given a death sentence. And you're telling me she doesn't have the right because you're not comfortable. Doesn't make any sense at all. At all. And I think we're starting to break through. I think the idea of the individual having that right, it's like it took 100 years, but we're starting to come back around to it. And it's opening up, and people are seeing it. And so what they're doing in Colorado isn't about whether or not there are going to be this windfall of pharmaceutical drugs that will help people. There won't be. It's about changing the mindset of the population to say, you have a right to choose for yourself. And welcome back to the show. Okay, coming into our final segment here, and we'll open up the phone lines for you. 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Okay, so we've had quite the day here in terms of our guests, and before we get into all that, I want to mention to you that this segment is brought to you by who? Anthem Vault.
Who, Ben? Who?
Anthem Vault. Listen, I love what these guys are doing. AnthemVault.com is where you go in order to be a part of the future of gold. So if you're looking to buy gold and silver products, the way to do it is head over to AnthemVault.com. Sign up for your free account. You can check out what they're doing. Love the setup that they have over there. Love what they've designed. You can actually go out to Salt Lake City and see your gold there in the vault. And it's about liquidity, 24/7, 365, which means you can buy gold and sell gold oh so easily. It's good stuff. So encourage you to check them out, AnthemVault.com. We talked about Colorado in the last segment. Mike in Denver, you're on.
Hey, Ben, how's it going this morning?
It's going well. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks. I wanted to call and tell you why they, you say it doesn't make sense that the government operates this way?
Well, I don't think it makes sense to a rational person.
Okay, that's fair, but I kind of believe that legal authority of their 14th Amendment is why they do these things. They think we're chattel. They don't think we're human beings. They unfortunately don't care about your friend the way that you and your listeners do, and they're never going to as long as they think they have that legal distinction.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, what do you think is happening? You're in Colorado. What do you think is happening with the culture there in terms of people beginning to recognize that just going along with the feds and everything that they want to impose on us just isn't working anymore?
Well, it's not, and I think the benefit to being out here is we are so detached from federal politics and the federal idea that we kind of feel like, well, we can do it our own way a little more. You know, we don't have a helmet law.
Right, which is great.
Because it was deemed unconstitutional, and I just think the mindset is a little bit different.
And helmet law meaning motorcycles, right?
Exactly, yeah. You don't have to wear one, you can. It was struck down by the Supreme Court of Colorado. And I think it's just the mindset.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the cool thing is, as you guys continually take, because it's all baby steps, right? You take this first step, and then the next step, and the next step, and then before you know it, you're in a full sprint away from the feds, which is hopefully what's happening in Colorado right now.
I hope so, too. Yeah, I'm a native, and, you know, it's a great lifestyle. You've probably been here, but I hope we can continue to keep the conversation going forward.
Yeah, I hope so, too. I mean, this idea, to me, is so simple, right? The idea is so simple that ultimately, at the end of the day, you as an individual have rights over your own body, to put substance into your own body, to make decisions for your own life. I mean, this is common sense stuff that people have believed since the dawn of man. People have believed this.
Well,
since the very first breath was breathed, and in the last 100 years, it has been just destroyed, decimated.
Right, and that's coincidentally about the same timing as the actual law changed. They think they own us, so you can't put that in your body because I own you, and you're going to pay taxes for the rest of your days to me. And I think eventually maybe we'll get there to where people can have that conversation about that issue, but for now, yeah, smoke a joint, don't wear a helmet, and hope you can heal your kid.
And hopefully not all three at the same time.
Exactly. Thanks,
but if you choose to, you're the one who's gonna end up with the head splattered like a watermelon.
Exactly.
And if that's your choice, that's your choice. And that's what we need to come back to, is understand that there are so many evils, and I know you know this, Mike, but there are so many evils that have been perpetrated on society in the name of the greater good. It's always in the name of the greater good.
Yeah, we've kind of lost our focus on humanity.
Absolutely. That you, as an individual, have no rights other than the rights that we grant to you as the collective. But as I mentioned earlier, the collective doesn't actually exist.
Right.
Right? It doesn't exist. That the whole idea of the collective is always somebody else. It's not you. So if you have a problem with what we're doing, well, it's not you. It's those people we have to protect. It's those people we have to look out for. And that's why you end up with tyrants. That's why you end up with these fascist leaders who are absolutely decimating entire people groups and leading the world into war, because it's always someone else. It's not you. It's always someone else who's being protected. And when it's always someone else and it's actually no one else, and the whole thing falls apart on us.
Pretty crazy, and I think your show goes a long way to helping people understand this. It's not that people are stupid, but they've been manipulated.
Absolutely. They have been. I appreciate that. And that's what we want to do, right? More than any other thing. We want to wake people up to the idea that they as an individual have power, and that you have rights that are naturally your rights. They belong to you, and they were not granted to you, not by the Constitution, not by the Founding Fathers, not by any person anywhere. They are inherent and they belong to you. And if we can return people to that line of thinking, it's pretty exciting stuff. Though I will say, it's kind of sad to me that it's happening in little spurts, like out in Colorado, where you guys are beginning to see that. And you have so many people who call themselves, quote unquote, conservatives who believe in liberty and freedom, but they don't actually believe in it all across the country.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's really common out here, too, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right on. Well, Mike, thanks for fighting the good fight, man. Thanks for
Hey, you too, brother. Take it here.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think that's what it really comes down to, is we have to reignite in people this belief. And the great thing, I think, Zach, about that too is ultimately, as much as our rights, these natural rights, are inherent to us, I think our belief in those rights is also inherent. I don't think you have to necessarily convince people these things are true. You simply have to be able to articulate it to them, and within themselves, they know it's true. They know that they have certain rights to their own beliefs, their own conscience, their own body, that people ultimately believe that about themselves, and it's just a process of awakening or reawakening those ideas inside of people.
Yeah, and it's education. It's going to take a bit. We get impatient here, don't we?
Absolutely.
We try to solve the world's problems in a couple hours every day, but we always have to carry over to the next day. But it is a process of education. So when you hear these stories, that's one of our goals. I think at least is one of my goals is on this program, as we talk about these stories, look deeper into not just the symptoms, but what's at the root. What's at the root? So what's at the root of this story? It's government, again, wishing to expand over the individual and be the man. And so look for those lessons, and that's what we're hoping. That's what we're really hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to our guest, Michael Dougherty, who wrote The Devil Inside the Beltway, and what he's talking about. I mean, as long as you keep a system where you empower government to kind of make up rules as they go, and to do so in the name of, again, protecting the greater good or protecting the collective, you're creating a publicly financed system of bullying where people get run over. And it doesn't take that much thought to say, we're just not going to do this way anymore. I mean, it's not that complicated. And overcoming it is not that hard, but it is a process. And the key to that process, I think, is, again, as you said, it's education, and it's articulating these ideas in a way and on a platform where people can hear them and find them.
Quote here from a 1964 speech by Ronald Reagan supporting Barry Goldwater.
Comes full circle here.
Full circle. I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term that we haven't applied to ourselves in America, but beyond that, the full power of centralized government. This was the very thing the founders sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling the people. And they know that when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those founding fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy.
Yeah, right on. Right on. And how many Republicans today actually believe that?
We're going to grow a new crop of them, I hope. They're declining, but we're hoping to highlight a few.
It's because all the cronies are in power, right? I think within the population, they believe it.
Yeah.
Right? Democrats too, they believe it. Libertarians, they believe it. Independents, they believe it. Millennials believe it. But the cronies who are in charge are afraid you'll find out.
We surround them, though. We're coming for you.
Right on. All right, that's our show for today. When we're not on air, you can find us online at benswann.com. Be sure to check out benswann.com. That is where humanity is greater than politics. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
And we go back.